All right, shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom. First and foremost, before we get this epistle started, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to our beloved Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, our beloved Lord and Savior, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha HaKwadash. Double honors as always to the apostles, the elders, and the sincere Archim of Great Millstone, who rule well, who teach well, who we learn the truth from daily, whether you hear forbearance and sincere salutations as always to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, as well as the speckled bird among that number, which are the Hebrew Israelite foreigner. So like the Hebrew Israelite foreigners scattered among the heathen that look like the heathen. And this is a quick epistle that I wanted to get into as quick as the Spirit will allow, touching upon the topic of the Boston Tea Party bug outs that's talking about the heathen can be saved. All right. And I'm not going to say too much on it as far as like, history and stuff like that, because I don't know them personally. All right. But I'm only going to get on the topics which pertain to salvation and also that which is not above my strength, which is, the precepts that I can bring out that will let any new Akim wa Akwathium know verifiably through the words of Yahweh Bashmi Shai, the Heavenly Father, in the name of His only begotten Son, that the heathen cannot be saved. And the only heathen that will be saved are the Israelites scattered among the heathen that look like the heathen. All right. So this right here, one of the precepts that I had to start this one off was the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 15. All right. And I'm going to start this one off at the top, verse 1. And it reads, "At the end of every 7 years, thou shalt make a release. And this is the manner of the release. Every creditor that lendeth aught unto his neighbor shall release it. He shall not exact it of his neighbor or of his brother, because it is called Yahweh's release. Of a foreigner thou mayest exact it again. But that which is thine with thy brother, thine hand shall release." All right. So this right here is a precept that shows you how we're supposed to handle debts when it comes to a fellow Israelite versus a heathen. Okay. So let me get this in the NLT on the right-hand side. Deuteronomy chapter 15, starting at verse 1 in the NLT on the right-hand side. And it reads, "At the end of every 7th year, you must cancel the debts of everyone who owes you money. This is how it must be done. Everyone must cancel the loans they have made to their fellow Israelites." All right, so this is a distinguishing factor right here. This is a statement that makes a distinguishment, and it sets the tone. All right, reading on. "They must not demand payment from their neighbors or relatives, for Yahweh's time of release has arrived." Verse 3. This release from debt, however, applies only to your fellow Israelites, not to the foreigners living among you. Okay? Now let me get this word foreigner right here, because like the apostles, the elders, and the sincere Archim of Great Millstone, and those on down to teach the likewise doctrine have been doing recently, have been reiterating that there are multiple Hebrew words for stranger. Okay? So let me get this word right here in the interlinear. This word right here for stranger. All right? And this time we have the word Nakaria. Okay.
Strong's H 5237. Nochri. Nochri.
More and more I hate this Yiddish. All right. So we got the Na, the Ka, the Ra, and at the end of the word we have the Ya. So the word is Nakaria. Outline of biblical usage: foreign, alien. All right. Definition A, foreign. Definition B, foreigner. Okay. Definition C, foreign woman or harlot. Definition D, unknown, unfamiliar, figuratively. KJV translation count as 45 times. The KJV translates Strong's H5237 in the following manner: stranger 18 times, strange 17 times, alien 4 times, strange woman 3 times, foreigner 2 times, outlandish 1 times, stranger with Strong's H376 1 time. Now let me see if I can get that stranger with Strong's H376. Okay. All right, so let me see if I can get it. Is that the right one? Yeah, the Wadi Ishmael Shah. So I'm gonna try to see, is it gonna be the same word in the car? Yeah. Okay. All right, and it's the word in the car again. All right, so Barakatah Yahweh Shmiel Shah. So let me go back to the precept I had in Deuteronomy chapter 15. All right, so right here, this is letting you know how to handle debts with an Israelite, a fellow Israelite, versus how to handle it with Nakaria, a stranger. All right. And the other precept that I had to show this right here was, yeah, I'll get that one. It'll help me bring things back together. The book of Leviticus, chapter 25. And I'm going to start at verse... I'm going to start at verse 35. Leviticus chapter 25, verse 35. And it reads, you can see the subtext says of poor countrymen. And on the right-hand side, it says redemption of the poor and enslaved. So verse 35 on the left-hand side, KJV, and it reads, and if thy brother be waxen poor, and falleth, and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger, or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. Let me stop right there, because this is where it gets tricky, to say the least, because you have to really have the Ruach HaKodesh supping with you. Yahweh Shmiel Shah has to open your eyes to the understanding, because there are words that are set up to be a stumbling block. And I'm pretty sure that these, pride being a main factor, from what I'm hearing from the reports. But other than that, well, Salakia, coupled with that is the spirit being removed from you. And like the apostle said, you start to leak oil. So we have 2 words right here that I'm going to get. I'm going to get this word stranger first. All right. And we have
Strong's H1616. Guard. Guard. And the form just below that, Geir. Geir.
All right. So for once, they got it right. Can't really go wrong when the A sounds, but you have the Ga and you have the Ra. So that makes it Gar. Outline of biblical usage, sojourner. Definition A, a temporary inhabitant, newcomer lacking inherited rights. Salakia, lacking inherited rights. B, of foreigners in Israel, though conceded rights. And Thawadi Halbash Miao Shah, because the beloved elder apostle Tahar, he did a video breaking this down further. I know I did a previous video, but elder apostle Tahar, he went more in depth about definition B right here, which says foreigners in Israel, though conceded rights. But I'm going to get the definitions in order. So right here, a sojourner, you already know what that means, but some people know what that means, some people don't. So let me just do it like this. Salakia, I'm moving too fast. I'll get it in the Edamon online for sojourner. Sojourner. Okay. All right. So this is the word sojourner in the etymology online, and it says temporary resident, guest, visitor. All right. A visitor, guest, lodger, boarder. Okay? And that's important to keep in mind for when I get these definitions. Salakia. All right, so definition A, a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer lacking inherent rights. All right, so this applies to Israelites that were born in foreign lands. All right, because we had relatives, we had members of the Commonwealth of Israel that preferred to live in other lands for one reason or the other. Now, they weren't going off for doing so. It was just their preference. And there are even provisions in the law that, that basically accommodates that. So, for example, here's an example that I want to get. So let's say for the example of Job. When you read the book of Job in chapter 1, it says there was a man that lived in the land of Uz. All right, and we know for years that, some individuals try to teach that Job was an Edomite. But these individuals are just bugged out because the scriptures tell you that the Heavenly Father, he's not dealing with Edomites on a spiritual level, okay? And for the Lord to be dealing with Job as much as he did, and for the Lord to have the report of Job that he did when he mentioned him, he said, when he was speaking to Satan, he says, "Has thou not considered my servant Job? He's upright." He basically talked about how righteous Job was. The Lord wouldn't be saying that about a daggone Edomite. He would be saying that in regards to an Israelite. All right, so Job indeed was an Israelite. Okay, and the apostles and the elders have done videos on that too. But the point is, Job lived in the land of Uz, and I believe Uz was in. Let me see if I can get that one. It may have been in Edom, if I remember correctly, because Job also had a friend named. I forgot it. I think it was Eliphaz the Temanite or something like that. And Teman, I know for a fact, is in Edom. But let me get Uz real quick. Okay. It's a man that dwelt in the land of Uz. Okay.
Strong's H 5780. Oops.
This is why you can't trust the Yiddish, man. All right, we have the I, the Wa, and at the end, we have the Tazah. So, I, Wa, Tazah. Outline the biblical usage with it. Son of Aram and grandson of Shem, son of Nahor by Milcah, an Edomite, son of Dishon and grandson of Seir. Okay. D says the country of Job, probably east and southeast of Palestine, somewhere in the Arabian desert. All right, so point is, Uz was a country outside of Israel. All right, and Job, for one reason or the other, he lived there. Okay, so say for example, one of Job's sons wanted to come back to Israel. Salakia. Let me go back to where I was. Blue letter. I hit the wrong button. All right. So, say that Job, one of his sons, decided to come back to Israel, and they wanted a place to stay in Israel. I'm gonna pull up that word gar again to get the point because it has the definitions. So, for a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer lacking inheritance rights. All right, and I got into that word lacking in the etymon, and that really, let me get to it. Lack. All right, lack. A noun, 13th century, absence, want, shortage, deficiency, not found. Okay. So lack doesn't always mean you absolutely don't have something. It can simply also be used to imply that you don't have something at the moment and you have to get it. Like, for example, I don't have water right now. I have to go to the well to get water. I'm lacking water. All right. That doesn't mean that I will never have water. I just have to go and acquire it. And we understand that no heathen has a place entering into the gates of Israel asking for a plot of land. You know, it don't work that way. All right, Yahweh Shai Shai, he's dealing with us in a different way than how the heathens deal amongst each other. All right, it's not about money with Yahweh Shai Shai. You can't sell a plot of land in Israel to a damn heathen. That's not how the Lord's dealing. Okay. So the point that I'm making right here is, say one of Job's sons wanted to come from the land of Uz and get a plot of land in Israel. All right. They would have to check in and go through the registry, and they would be like, he'd be like, hey, I'm seeking a plot of land. And they would be like, for example, I'm just spitballing because, you know, the scripture doesn't tell you what Job's tribe was or anything like that. But say, for example, you know, one of the elders or someone that he has to talk to asks him, what tribe are you from? And he'll say, I'm such and such, son of Job, son of such and such, son of such and such, from the tribe of Asher. Okay? Then they would check the registry and see, okay, you are from that lineage. Okay, so yeah, they'll find a plot of land for him in Asher for him to stay. All right. They will find a city in Asher that's been allotted to his family's line. Like, for example, if I remember correctly in the scriptures, Caleb from the tribe of Judah, who had the good report along with Joshua when they had to spy out the promised land, his family line inherits a particular plot of land in Hebron, which is in Judah. All right. And King David, his bloodline inherits a plot of land in Bethlehem. All right. So in this example, whoever, let's say hypothetically, Job is from the tribe of Asher. So that means his son and whatever one of his children they're automatically from the tribe of Asher. So if they wanted to come and, you know, basically, I don't want to use that word, cash in. If they wanted to exercise their inherited rights, you know, if they came to Israel lacking inherited rights, they can exercise their inherited rights by keeping a genealogical record of, you know, their family, their line, the lineage, which once again is determined by the father. So if he can prove that he's from one of the 12 tribes, then he can get a plot of land in one of the cities of the 12 tribes that his family's line traces back to, that they have inheritance in. All right. And Salaki, if I rambled long with that one, I was trying to like do my best to tie these points together, you know. But definition B, of foreigners in Israel, though conceded rights. All right. So this right here would apply to, let's say, Elder Apostle Tahar said it earlier. Like, let's say it's an Israelite who wants to live in another land. All right. So basically at that point, them and their family, they depart from that land. They depart from the land of Israel, and they decide that, let's say they want to live in, let's say like they want to live in Egypt or something like that, in Alexandria. And, you know, so basically they concede their rights because that's an open plot of land. All right. So whatever Israelites that are from the tribe that this Israelite family is from, you know, this Israelite family is leaving. So there's a plot of land right there for other Israelites of that tribe. All right. But, you know, this is what that gets into. And this is why, you know, through the spirit of Prophet Yahweh Shai, I'm understanding why now this word sojourner is at the top of the outline of biblical usage, because it's showing you the two different types of sojourner that an Israelite can be, you know, the one coming in and the one going out, because we have it where you have to attend the three appointed annual holy days, the annual feast days. Even if you are a sojourner, like even if you are one of these Israelites that, Salakia, even if you are one of these Israelites that are living in a foreign land, you still have to report to Jerusalem for, I believe it's the Passover, the Feast of First Fruits, and I believe the Feast of Tabernacles, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I can get that. Appointed feasts. Oh man, I missed the word. Salakia. Appointed feasts. Man. I think it's Leviticus chapter 24 that gets into the appointed feasts. All of religious festivals. Okay. Of the first harvest. Let me see. Is it annual feasts? Man, I'm moving too fast. I'm trying to remember the best way to get to that precept. Let me see, is it in Exodus? Property rights. Ten Commandments. I'll try Deuteronomy. Should be 16. Thawadi Yahweh Shemiel Shah. Okay. So, right here, I'm going to get this. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, starting at verse 1, and it reads, Observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto Yahweh Elohayaka, for in the month of Abib, Yahweh Elohayaka brought thee forth out of Mount Azarium by night. Thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover unto Yahweh Elohayaka of the flock and the herd in the place which Yahweh shall choose to place his name there. Thou shalt eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith, even the bread of affliction. For thou camest forth out of the land of Mount Azarium in haste, that thou mayest remember the day when thou camest forth out of the land of Mount Azarium all the days of thy life. And there shall be no and there shall be no leavened bread seen with thee in all thy coast 7 days. Neither shall there anything of the flesh which thou sacrificed the first day at even remain all night until the morning. Thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of thy gates, which Yahweh Elohayaka giveth thee, but at the place which Yahweh Elohayaka shall choose to place his name in. There thou shalt sacrifice the Passover at even, at the going down of the sun, and at the season that thou camest forth out of the land of Mount Azarium. And thou shalt roast and eat it in the place which Yahweh Elohayaka shall choose, and thou shalt turn in the morning and go unto thy tents. 6 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day shall be a solemn assembly to Yahweh Elohayaka. Thou shalt do no work therein. All right. Verse 9, 7 weeks shalt thou number unto thee. Begin to number 7 weeks from such time as thou beginnest to put the sickle to the corn. And thou shalt keep the feast of weeks unto Yahweh Elohayaka with a tribute of free will offering of thine hand, which thou shalt give unto Yahweh Elohayaka according as Yahweh Elohayaka hath blessed thee. And thou shalt rejoice before Yahweh Elohayaka, thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant and the Levite that is within thy gates, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow that are among you, in the place which Yahweh Elohayaka hath chosen to place his name there. All right, so once again, there goes that word. All right, that word stranger. So let me get that one real quick while I'm at it, because this whole lesson is about the stranger. All right, so and the stranger. Once again, is that word gar. All right. And that word gar right there is beautiful because it lets you know this is one of the words of stranger that exclusively is referring to an Israelite. All right, because I know definition A may seem a little choppy, but you know, Thawadi Yahweh Shemiel Shah for putting the spirit on Elder Apostle Tahar to get back into this. You know, this is going back to the basics for him, but it's always good for everybody else that's newer to this to brush up on this. But right here, that word gar lets you know that this is referring to Israelites. And there's the precept that lets you know, because the beloved prophet Mashah, he named his son Garsham. His firstborn son is named Garsham because he was a stranger in a foreign land. All right. I'm not going to get that precept right now. I'm trying to make sure that I get the lesson. I stay on topic. All right. What else can I get right here? All right. Reading on. And the stranger and the fatherless. This is Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 11. I'll start from 11. Pick back up at 11. And it reads, and thou shalt rejoice before Yahweh Elohim, thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant and the Levite that is within thy gates, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow that are among you in the place which Yahweh Elohim hath chosen to place his name there. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in Montezarium, and thou shalt observe to do these statutes. All right. Verse 13. Thou shalt observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days after that thou hast gathered in thy corn and thy wine. And thou shalt rejoice in thy feast, thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant and the Levite and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow that are within thy gates. Okay, now let me do this right here so I don't have to keep on, interrupting the lesson by going to the interlinear. I'm going to put the Hebrew up on the right-hand side. So let me make sure that right here, when it's getting to the Feast of Tabernacles, we still have that same word for stranger. All right, so I'm going to read Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 14, and the Lashwan Kodash on the right-hand side. All right. And what we have right here, we have Wa Shemachath Ba Cha Gaka Atha Wa Banka Wa Bathka, which is your son and your daughter. All right. Wa I Badka, which is your servant. Wa Amathka. All right. That's maidservant. What else do we have right here? Wa Ha Lawaya, which is the Levite. Wa Ha Gar, and that is the stranger. All right, that's the main point I wanted to get right there, was to prove that that same word for stranger, gar, is still right there. All right, keeping track of that so you can understand that these precepts are applying to Israelites. And like the apostles, the elders, and the Sensei Archimate Great Millstone have gotten into countless times, being a Hebrew Israelite is not a religion in the worldly sense. You can't convert to being a Hebrew Israelite. You are a Hebrew Israelite by blood. All right, just like an Edomite is an Edomite by blood. It's based off of your lineage. Salakia. And lineage is determined by who your father is. So no Edomite can lay with the damn bed wench Jake woman and all of a sudden think he can weasel his way into it. And it don't work that way. And if you think I'm joking, if you think I'm lying, go ahead and read the account in the book of Leviticus with that Egyptian man and who had a son by a Danite woman. All right, that child was still a heathen, and he blasphemed the name of Yahweh Shemel Shai, and he got put to death. All right, so it's just certain things. Yeah, this is why Esau loves Christianity, man. He loves pushing that, because everybody can just be a Christian. You can be a daggone Moabite and call yourself a Christian. You can still be slurping on a daggone turtle soup or some shit like that and call yourself a Christian. But it don't work that way in Israel. You get put to death by Yahweh Shemel Shai for not keeping these laws. All right. And it's not up to us to make you one. Yahweh Shemel Shai, he already made his choice of who's an Israelite and who's a heathen. But reading on in verse 14 in the left-hand side in the KJV. And thou shalt rejoice in thy feast, thou and thy son, and thy daughter, and thy manservant, and thy maidservant, and thy Levite, Salakia, and the Levite, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow that are within thy gates. 7 days shalt thou keep a solemn feast unto Yahweh Elohim in the place which Yahweh shall choose, because Yahweh Elohim shall bless thee in all thine increase, and in all the work of thine hands. Therefore thou shalt surely rejoice. Here we go. This is the point. Verse 16. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before Yahweh Elohim in the place which he shall choose. In the feast of unleavened bread, which the Passover is a part of that. All right. And in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles. And they shall not appear before Yahweh empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of Yahweh Elohim, which he hath given thee. All right. Judges and officers shalt thou make thee in all thy gates, which Yahweh Elohim giveth thee throughout thy tribes, and they shall judge the people with just judgment. Okay. And that's the point I wanted to get right there. All right. The 3 appointed feasts. And these apply to Israelites. All right. So even if you were an Israelite that lived in a foreign land, okay, you were still required to report 3 times a year for these annual appointed feasts, which are the Passover, and coupled with the Passover is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The Passover comes on the 14th day of the first month. And then on the 15th day, it's going to start the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which the scriptures just told you it lasts 7 days. Well, Salaki, it lasts 6 days. And on the 7th day, it's a solemn assembly where you do no servile work because it falls on another Sabbath again. Once again, proving to you that the new moon dictates that. Then you have the Feast of Weeks, which the Lord says you count 7 weeks after the conclusion of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right. And then you have the Feast of Tabernacles. These are the 3 appointed feasts that you have to keep if you're an Israelite. And it doesn't matter if you are Salakia. It doesn't matter if you are a Jake living in foreign lands. You still have to keep the appointed feasts. All right. So there was another precept that I had that gets into this. Right. It was in Deuteronomy 15. No, Salakia. Leviticus 25. And I was at 35. Okay. Leviticus chapter 25, verse 35, and it reads, and if thy brother be waxen poor and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. All right. So I'm going to read this on the right-hand side. Leviticus chapter 25, verse 35, and the Lashon Kodash on the right-hand side, and it reads, Wakaya Ya Mawaika, Salakia, Ya Mawaka, Acha Yaka, Wa Mata, Ya Dawa, Aimaka, Salakia, Aimka, Waha, Cha Zakwath, Bawa, Gar. And we already know that that word gar means stranger, like an Israelite foreigner. An Israelite that was just born in another land. Okay? Reading on. Watha Washab. And that's another word for stranger that I believe the beloved brother from the GMS KC camp, he got that earlier. And I'm going to get that word next. That's the word for sojourner. What else? Wachaya Aimka. All right, so let me get that word sojourner, which is Washab. All right.
Strong's H 8453. Toshav. Toshav.
All right. We have the Tha, the Wa, the Shah, and the Ba. Okay, fine, let me do that. All right. Outline of biblical usage: sojourner, stranger. And then I found it interesting when I went down here. Okay. KJV translation count 14 times. The KJV translates Strong's H 8453 in the following manner: sojourner 9 times, stranger 3 times, foreigner 1 time, inhabitant 1 time. And it's important to understand this word right here, inhabitant, because if you get the precepts, you'll see that Israel is not like the heathen nations. When it comes to the heathen nations, they'll let pretty much anybody go there if the money's right. But Israel wasn't the same. We weren't allowed to sell plots of land, because every plot of land Yahweh Shah gave to every individual family amongst the 12 tribes. All right. But Strong's definition, Thawashab, all right, from Strong's H3427, a dweller but not outlandish, especially as distinguished from a native citizen, active participle of Strong's H3427, and a temporary inmate, Strong's H1616, or a mere lodger, Strong's H3885. Resident, alien, foreigner, inhabitant, sojourner, stranger. So I'm going to try to get Strong's H5237, where it says a dweller but not outlandish. All right. And it takes me back to that word Nakaria. And Nakaria gets into outlandish, because typically this word Nakaria is applied to a heathen. But understanding that we had consequences in our law where certain individuals were cut off from the commonwealth, then they could also be qualified as Nakaria. They can be likened unto Nakaria, because like one of the beloved elder brothers said earlier, if you have our people that are scattered in these foreign lands, speaking these foreign languages, keeping these foreign customs, they can't call themselves Israelites anymore because they're cut off. Thus saith the law of Mashah. So what are they going to do? They're going to call themselves by the names of whatever land they're in. So if this Jake gets cut off from amongst his people, because I believe there were certain regulations. I believe if it was if you didn't attend the Passover, you were cut off from your people. All right. And I think it's another regulation. I believe it's a regulation of I believe it's one of the regulations of the Sabbath. I know it's some regulations of the Sabbath where if you I believe it was a Jake that got put to death for picking up sticks on the Sabbath. But then there's another instance in the Sabbath where if you break a Sabbath regulation, you cut off from among your people instead of just, being put to death on the spot. But the point is, who knows how many Jakes got cut off from amongst our people over the course of history before there was even the Great Falling Away, before there was even the Greek captivity. All right. So keeping that into account, you have many Jakes that were considered Nakaria. Well, Nakaryam, because that makes it plural. And all that means is, were they still Israelites? Absolutely. But under the first covenant, you were cut off. There was no way back in for you. All right. And this is why when you get to the New Testament, this is another reason why the New Testament is called the Gospels, which means the good news. The good news is, even if you cut off under the first covenant standards, you have a way back in through faith in Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, whom the world calls Jesus Christ. Not all nations. All right. The precepts right there are clear as day. If this was for, it would be no purpose for this being for all nations, man. The Lord cut off Israel for acting like the other nations. So why the hell would he turn around and say, okay, I put my people through hell for disobeying me because I'm a jealous power and they worship your strange gods. Now you, who are the primary worshiper of these strange gods, these idols, I'm going to let you in as well. No, that's bugged out. That's bugged out. One thing don't come before the other. Israel still has enemies. The book of Psalms, the 83rd chapter, gives you a whole rundown of you heathen, that cut us off, that conspired with Esau, the red Hebrew Edomite, the devil that the Bible speaks of. You conspire with him to cut us off from being a nation. And the scriptures clearly speak about the Lord raising up a horn of salvation in the house of David to deliver us from all of our enemies and those that hate us. You heathen nations hate us. All right? Understanding that alone, there's prophecies that have to be fulfilled about you getting your foot. Well, Yahweh Shai putting his foot in your neck. All right? So that word Nakaria, it typically does allude to an actual heathen. All right? But it can also be applied to Israelites that were cut off from the commonwealth. All right? You got like the Greeks, where it says there's neither Jew nor Greek. It's referring to Nakarium. Israelites that were cut off from the commonwealth, that were considered heathen. And you sometimes have the confusion because Esau puts that word Gentile in the New Testament so much, and then Gentile typically just means nation. All right, it's Gawayam, which means nations. So it's not really, it just adds a lot of confusion, but that's what the devil does, man. What can you do besides study to show yourself approved? You can't take his word at face value. That goes without saying at this point. You had it his way, he'd still have you thinking that every great person on the planet is a damn Edomite. All right. That's not the word I wanted. Salakia. Let me try Strong's H. Yeah, H1616 is Gar. All right. So back to Leviticus chapter 25, verse 36. And it reads, "Thou shalt take no usury of him." This is talking about a Gar, an Israelite foreigner, a sojourner. "Thou shalt take no usury of him or increase, but fear Yahweh Elohayaka, that thy brother may live with thee." And this is another aspect in which it gets into the sojourner aspect, because the sojourner, it says lodging. So he's going to lodge with you. He's going to stay in your abode, so to speak. All right. "Thou shalt not give him thy money upon usury, nor lend him thy victuals for increase." And victuals is basically food. All right. So reading on, we have, what else did I have? All right. Oh, yeah. That's the other point I wanted to make. Usury is interest. So we're not supposed to charge Israelites interest. All right. We're not supposed to charge our fellow Israelites interest. Verse 38. "I am Yahweh Elohayaka, which brought you forth out of the land of Mount Zarium to give you the land of Canaan, and to be your power. And if thy brother that dwelleth with thee be waxen poor, and be sold unto thee, thou shalt not compel him to serve as a bondservant." Okay? "But as an hired servant, and as a sojourner, he shall be with thee, and shall serve thee unto the year of Jubilee." And we understand that that year of Jubilee is the year of release. All right, and that's what I was getting into in the book of Deuteronomy, the 15th chapter, when I started this epistle. So I'm going to get that word bondservant real quick, because that's the important point that I need to make with this. All right.
Strong's H 5650. Eved.
All right. So we have I, Ba, and we have the Da. So Ibad. Outline of biblical usage: slave, servant. Definition A, slave, servant, manservant. Definition B, subjects. Definition C, servants, worshipers of the Most High. All right. Definition D, servant in special sense as prophets, Levites, etc. All right. And this is what a lot of Jake gets mixed up. Jake starts thinking that, oh, I'm a prophet. So Jake thinks that they think that they're the king of their own mountain, when they forget that you're only a prophet and a servant of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. You are still subordinate, and you have to do what he tells you to. All right. Reading on. Definition E, servant for Yasha Allah. Definition F, servant as a form of address between equals. Yeah, because you can have examples in the scriptures where somebody says, oh, have mercy upon thy servant. Things like that. So when you read that, that's the context that's referring to. All right. Strong's definition, Ibad, from Strong's H5647, a servant, bondman, Salakia, a servant, bondage, bondman, servant, manservant. Okay. And let's get the other word, hired servant. Okay. And the word for hired servant is
Strong's H7916, Sahir, Sahir.
whatever the hell you just said. No. So we have the Shah, we have the Shah, we have the Ka, we have the Ya, and we have the Ra at the end of it. So Shakayar or Shakyar. Outline of biblical usage, hired. Hired of animal, definition A. Hireling or hired laborer, definition B. And in some cases, mercenary. So in this case, it'll obviously be definition B, a hired laborer. So an employee, okay? Basically, you don't treat your people like slaves. You don't keep them in perpetual bondage. All right, there's a difference between bond servant and hired servant. So bond servant would be abad, okay? And in the spiritual sense, you hear us say, you know, like you can get in the book of, I believe it's the book of 1 Corinthians, we're prisoners of hope. All right, Salaki, if I'm wrong, I may post that in the comment section, Adawan Ratazah. And then you have this word shakyar, which gets into a hired, you know, an employee, a person that's working for money, okay? And that's what the scriptures is telling you. We're supposed to treat a fellow Israelite as shakyar, not as ibad, when it comes to a brother falling on hard times. All right, and let me get this word jubilee, okay?
Strong's H3104, Yovel, Yovel.
Yah, Wah, Ba, and La is at the end of the word. All right, so Yah, Wabal. Outline of biblical usage, ram, ram's horn, trumpet, cornet. Ram only in combination, ram's horn, trumpet. Jubilee year marked by the blowing of the trumpets, the cornets. All right, so that's the year of release, okay? Let me see if I can get that. All right, so, yeah, verse 10. Leviticus 25, verse 10, and it reads, and ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possessions, and ye shall return every man unto his family. Verse 11, a jubilee shall be, a jubilee shall that 50th year be unto you. Ye shall not sow, neither reap that which groweth of itself, groweth in itself, groweth of itself in it, nor gather the grapes in it of thy vine undressed. For it is the jubilee, it shall be holy unto you. Ye shall eat the increase thereof out of the field. In the year of this jubilee ye shall return every man unto his possession. And if thou sell aught unto thy neighbor, or buyest aught of thy neighbor's hand, ye shall not oppress one another. According to the number of years after the jubilee, thou shalt buy of thy neighbor, and according to the number of years of the fruits he shall sell unto thee. All right, that's the point I wanted to get right there, getting into the significance of jubilee and what it's about. All right, the year of release. And like it says, a Hebrew servant is only supposed to work for another Hebrew for 7 years. And then you let that Hebrew servant go, and you know, you don't charge him anything. You let him go with his possessions and his money and stuff of that nature. And the Jubilee, you know, 7 times 7 is 49. So the Jubilee being the 50th year, that's the year, you know. I just basically read the precept about that. Okay. Now let me get back to where I was at. Leviticus chapter 25, verse 41. And it reads, and then shall he depart from thee, both he and his children with him, and ye shall, Salakia, and shall return unto his own family and unto the possessions, Salakia, unto the possession of his fathers shall he return. All right. And we've already established that this is a Gar, so he's still an Israelite. So that means his fathers are Israelites. His lineage traces back to Israel, so he returns back to the possession of his people. All right. Well, Salaki, the possession of his father, so of his family line. All right. Verse 42. For they are my servants, which I brought forth out of the land of Maltazarium. They shall not be sold as bondmen. Huh? Like the beloved brother Shapar the 12 would say, huh? Right there. That's a good point. Verse 42. So if the Lord, if this applies to heathen, why is the Lord saying they are my servants that I brought forth out of the land of Egypt? The Lord didn't bring any heathen out of the land of Egypt because of a promise he made unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. No. The children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that are accounted for the promise are the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and speckled bird. All right. This doesn't apply to whatever Egyptians may have been a part of the mixed multitude, because they died off. They didn't make it to the promised land. Let you know that right now. And even if they did, they would never have any inheritance rights. The promised land was meant to be split up amongst the 12 tribes and their families. All right. And this point right here proved it. As many times as I read this, I missed over that point. The Wadi Halbash Miao Shah. Verse 43. Thou shalt not rule over him with vigor, but shalt fear Alahayaka. All right. Verse 44. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids. And I just got those words for bondmen and bondmaids. It basically means slaves that you don't have to release on on the Jubilee, that you don't have to release on the year of release. All right. So whether it be the what's the word I want to use? Whether it be the normal year of release, which is the 7-year period that a Hebrew servant is supposed to work for another Hebrew. And when I say Hebrew, I don't mean just any Hebrew, like Hebrew Moabite, Hebrew Egypt. No, Hebrew Israelite. The 7 years that one Hebrew Israelite is supposed to work for another Hebrew Israelite. And as well as the Jubilee, which is, in the 50th year of, that servitude. All right. Where Israelites get released and things of that nature with the precepts that I just that I just wrote out. Not wrote out. Salakia, that I just spoke on. That does not apply to heathen. Verse 45. Moreover, the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy, and of their families that are with you, which they begat in your land, and they shall be your possession. And ye shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them for a possession. They shall be your bondmen forever. But over your brethren, the children of Yasher Allah, ye shall not rule over one another with vigor. Salakia, with rigor. So right here letting you know, a Gar and a Nakaria are two different things. Gar, that's always going to apply to an Israelite. Nakaria, that typically applies to heathen. But in certain special instances, it can also apply to Israelites. So whatever word you get for stranger in Hebrew, it applies to Israelites. Salakia, it can apply to Israelites. But there are particular words for a stranger in Hebrew that only applies to heathen, like Nakaria. All right. And I think it was another word, Zawar. If I can find that word, I don't know. I may not get it for this epistle, But it's another precept I had in the book of Nehemiah that I'm going to wrap it up. It's the book of Nehemiah, chapter 5. And let me see. Yeah, I'm going to start from the top of verse 1. And it reads, and you can see the subtext says usury abolished. And we just got the precept about usury. And there was a great cry of the people and of their wives against their brethren, Jehoiada. All right. And there were they, Salaki, and there were that said, we, our sons and our daughters, are many. Therefore, we take up corn for them that we may eat and live. Some also there were that said, we have mortgaged our lands, vineyards, and houses that we might buy corn because of the dearth. There were also that said, we have borrowed money for the king's tribute, and that upon our lands and vineyards. Yet now our flesh is as the flesh of our brethren, our children as their children. And lo, we bring into bondage our sons and our daughters to be servants, and some of our daughters are brought unto bondage already. Neither is it in our power to redeem them, for other men have our lands and vineyards. And I was very angry when I heard their words. I was very angry when I heard their cry and these words. Then I consulted with myself, and I rebuked the nobles and the rulers, and said unto them, ye exact usury every one of his brother. And I set a great assembly against them. And I said unto them, we after our ability have redeemed our brethren Jehoiada, which were sold unto the heathen. And will ye even sell your brethren? Or shall they be sold unto us? Then they held their peace and found nothing to answer. And I said, also I said, it is not good that ye do. Ought ye not to walk in the fear of the Most High Yahweh, because of the reproach of the heathen, our enemies? I likewise and my brethren and my servants might exact of them money and corn. I pray you, leave us off this usury. Restore, I pray you, to them even this day their lands, their vineyards, their olive yards, and their houses. Also the 100th part of the money and of the corn, the wine, and the oil that ye exact of them. Then said they, we will restore them, and we will require nothing of them. So will we do as thou sayest. Then I called the priests and took an oath of them that they should do according to this promise. All right. Verse 13, I shook my lap and said, so Yahweh shake out every man from his house and from his labor that performeth not this promise. Even thus be he shaken out and emptied. And all the congregation said, Amen, and praised Yahweh. And the people did according to this promise. So the reason why Nehemiah got upset with this, it goes back into the precepts I was getting in the law, in Thawarah, about the servitude. We're supposed to deal with our brethren differently than we deal with heathen. Our brethren are supposed to be hired slaves, but in the sense of hired servants unto us. And that's only supposed to be for a 7-year period. And the heathen are supposed to be bondmen and bondwomen, meaning perpetual servants, slaves. All right. But what these jakes was doing right here was being wicked, because as they said, as you can see what they was saying when they was complaining to Nehemiah about what was going on, we had our own people that was being wicked and basically had our people serving hardcore bondage. Where the point they had to sell their lands just to, keep up with the expenses of whatever their masters had them do, and on top of that, having to pay the king's tribute. All right. And they didn't have any power to redeem their sons and daughters out of the bondage. And that word redeem gets into buying. All right. which is why in the scriptures, when it talks about the curses in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and I believe it's the 68th verse, which is the last verse, it talks about how we will go into slavery as bondmen and bondwomen. Once again, letting you know that there's a difference between a hired servant and a bondman and a bondwoman. That we become those things, bondmen and bondwomen, and that no man would buy us. That word is redeem. And the elder apostle Ariam Lob, he got into that recently. All right. So right here, let me see if I can get that word redeem. Okay. Sure. All right. To redeem them. All right, it redirected me here. So let me see, could I get the word redeemed from right here? All right. All right.
Strong's H 1350. Gaal. Gaal.
All right. We have the Ga, the Ah, and the La. So Gaal. Outline of biblical usage: to redeem, act as a kinsman redeemer, avenge, revenge, ransom, do the part of a kinsman. All right, and that's what Boaz did. So it says to act as a kinsman, do the part of next of kin, act as a kinsman redeemer. By marrying brother's widow, to beget a child for him, to redeem from slavery, to redeem land, to exact vengeance. All right, so the first one right here gets into the levirate marriage. All right, that's the precept where a brother in Israel, if he passes away, and his brother, like say a man was in Israel, passes away, and his wife is left, she's left without her husband. If that man who passed away had a brother that was staying with him, then the brother's supposed to go in unto his brother's wife and raise up a seed, a son, so his brother's inheritance could be passed down within that family. But only if, only if that man passed away before he had a son with his wife. He needs somebody or a child, he needs somebody to pass down the inheritance to. It was primarily, for a son. But in other instances, Salakia, like you see right here in the, what is this? Where it has definition A, the second part of definition A, to redeem from slavery, as well as to redeem land. Those are the definitions that apply in the verses in Nehemiah that I was just reading. All right. Because to redeem, it gets into this right here, to redeem by payment. All right. So in this instance, that's what our people was complaining about to Nehemiah, that they had wicked jakes amongst them that was exacting usury of them and some more stuff, which goes against the law. All right. And it shows you right here, this is the point, like we will have slaves in the kingdom of heaven, and they will be of the heathen nation, because the Lord's going to put his law in our inward parts, meaning we won't be able to sin and we won't be able to go off. While at the same time, the Lord did say that he will give us the heathen for our inheritance, and we shall rule over them with a rod of iron and dash them into pieces like a potter's vessel, being joint heirs with Yahweh Shai. Adawan, Yahweh Bashmiel Shai, Rod Tazar, we be those men. If that's the case, how do we fulfill having slaves without breaking the law? Because our slaves are going to be the heathen. And a Hebrew Israelite will not have to serve another Hebrew Israelite, because there will never be a poor Hebrew Israelite ever again in the kingdom. Now, there will be rank. You will have, the elect on a higher level than, the average Israelite. But every single Israelite is going to be far beyond what a heathen could ever hope to be. All right. But that's all I have for this epistle right here. Hopefully this was edifying to the elected nation of Israel, to the hopeful elected nation of Israel. Once again, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to our beloved Heavenly Father and his only begotten Son, our beloved Lord and Savior, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ruach HaKodesh. Double honors as always to the apostles, the elders, and the sincere Archim of Great Millstone, who rule well, who teach well, who we learn the truth from daily, whether you hear, forbear, and a sincere salutation as always to the hopeful elected nation of Israel. as well as the speckled bird among that number, which are the Hebrew Israelite foreigners scattered among the heathen that look like the heathen. Kwam Yasharala and the Baba Ball. We almost out of here. Adawan Ratazah, and we got next Adawan Ratazah. Shemai Yasha'ala Yahweh Alahayanawa Yahweh Akkad. Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.